Okay, let's just start with a number. $4.7 trillion. That's a staggering amount, right? Well, that's how much is lost to global fraud every single year. And get this, the average fraud, it just sits there undetected for 14 months. But today, we're going to look at a platform that promises to catch it in less than 60 seconds.
So, here's what we're going to cover. First, we'll dig into the sheer scale of this problem. Then, we'll meet the AI watchdog designed to tackle it head-on. After that, we'll break down the key auditing rules it's built on, show you how it actually works, and finally, we'll look at the secret sauce, its certainty engine that relies on pure math.
All right, first things first. Let's really wrap our heads around the size of the challenge we're talking about here.
So that number I mentioned, $4.7 trillion. That's what businesses are losing to fraud every year around the world. It's just an unbelievable figure. And it happens quietly, you know? It's not a big heist. It's this silent bleeding out, one bad journal entry at a time.
And maybe the scariest part? It's not like these things get caught right away. Nope. On average, a fraud can just sit there, festering in the company's books for 14 months before anyone has a clue that something's off.
But here's where things get really interesting. Technology is flipping this whole script. Imagine going from 14 months down to less than a minute. Yeah, under 60 seconds. Just let that sink in for a moment.
So who gets hit the hardest by this? It's the small and mid-sized businesses, for sure. They're stuck in this really tough spot. They can't afford the big-name audit firms, right? And trying to review every transaction by hand? That takes forever, costs a ton, and you're still going to miss stuff. The tools that are out there now are either way too complicated, way too expensive, or honestly, they just don't go deep enough. And that's exactly the gap that Audit AI was designed to fill.
Okay, so how do you close that gap? Well, let's take a look at a new breed of tool, a kind of financial watchdog that, well, never sleeps.
Now, I want to be really clear about something. This isn't one of those generic AI chatbots you've been seeing everywhere. Not at all. Audit AI is a specialist. It's a compliance engine built for one purpose: to automatically apply the exact same rules the world's top audit firms use, but it does it on every single transaction almost instantly.
And the way it works is pretty clever. It uses this three-layer system. The foundation, layer 1, is all about pure solid math, stuff that's verifiable. Then, on top of that, it adds a smart AI layer that's designed to spot hidden patterns and weird anomalies. And finally, layer 3 is a manual override, so there's always a human-in-the-loop option if the data gets a little strange.
Okay, to really get how this thing works, we need to quickly talk about the rules it's built on. So, let's demystify a couple of these core auditing ideas.
So you'll hear the terms IFRS and IAS. Just think of them as the official global rulebook for accounting. It's what makes sure a startup in, say, Austin and a giant corporation in Tokyo are all speaking the same financial language. It's all about consistency and transparency.
And Audit AI is constantly checking your books against these rules automatically. It catches those common and often costly mistakes that businesses make, sometimes without even knowing it. For instance, a big one is IFRS 15. It says you can't book a whole year's subscription revenue on the very first day. Or IAS 16, which is all about how you handle physical assets. The platform flags these violations right away. Plus other obvious red flags like paying the same invoice twice or seeing a whole bunch of suspicious round numbers in expense reports.
Okay, now this is really cool. It brings us to this amazing statistical trick called Benford's Law. Here's something most people don't know. In any big set of real-world financial numbers, about 30% of them should start with the digit 1. It's just a statistical fact. So if you look at a company's books and the numbers don't follow that pattern, like you see here with these red bars showing a big difference from what's expected, that is a huge red flag. It strongly suggests that the numbers might have been made up or manipulated.
And of course, it checks the most fundamental rule in all of accounting. Debits have to equal credits. Always. This is the trial balance. If those two don't match up, you basically can't trust anything in the financial statements. It's that simple. And Audit AI makes sure they balance with 100% mathematical certainty.
All right, so we've got the principles down. Now let's see how the platform actually works, and more importantly, how it takes all this complexity and makes it super simple.
So how do you get started? It's actually really easy. You just upload a file, a simple CSV or Excel export from whatever accounting system you use. QuickBooks, Sage, Xero, SAP, even a custom spreadsheet. The big takeaway here is you don't need some complex, months-long integration project.
And getting that data into the system is a breeze, thanks to another one of these smart 3-layer engines. First, it just looks for common column names like date or amount. Simple. If the names are weird, it uses AI to actually look at the data in the rows to figure out what's what. And if for some reason that fails, you can just map the columns yourself. You're never, ever stuck. This alone can save you hours of mind-numbing data cleanup.
Okay, now let's get to the real heart of the platform. This is what builds the foundation of trust. We're talking about the deterministic engine.
And here's the key thing to remember. Before any of the fancy AI stuff even kicks in, the platform runs a whole series of checks that are based on pure, undeniable math. We're not talking about AI guesses or probabilities here. We're talking about verifiable proof.
In fact, it runs 9 of these different mathematical tests. You've got the trial balance check we talked about. It looks for exact duplicates. It even looks for near duplicates. It flags one-sided entries, and it analyzes for those sneaky patterns, like when someone crams a bunch of transactions in right at the end of the month.
And honestly, this is what makes Audit AI so different. The most important findings it gives you aren't some black box AI guess. They're mathematical facts. That's why they're labeled verified. It gives you this solid ground truth that you can absolutely rely on.
Let's take an example. A classic fraud technique is to stuff a bunch of transactions in at the end of the period to make the numbers look better. Well, Audit AI automatically flags any month where the transaction volume in the last 5 days is more than 2.5 times the monthly average. You know, this is the exact same kind of test the big audit firms do by hand. Audit AI just does it in seconds.
So when you see what's possible with this kind of technology, it really makes you think, right? The question isn't just, is this cool? The real question is, can any business really afford to leave its finances to chance, to rely on manual spot checks and just plain guesswork, when this level of automated mathematical certainty is actually available?